What do we do as parents if our child comes to us and says, "Mom, Dad, nobody in my class likes me. I don't have any friends." It's a pretty painful thing to hear. But even though most kids socialize relatively easy, there are a large number of kids that do have this problem. They feel like they don't have any friends, and maybe they don't. The good news for us as parents is that there are things that we can do, practical things, that can help solve this problem. This is a two-part video. This is the first part, which is the easiest thing. The second part will follow next week. Now, it is pretty beautiful out here on the beach today, but it is getting just a little bit chilly. So let's go inside and start working on this problem. Let's see if we can find some solutions. Okay, this is a little more comfortable. Now, if you like this topic, tap on subscribe, the chime, and also give me a like. Very, very motivating. But let's just dive right into this. Now, what time frame are we talking about? We're talking about kids, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. This is the first time in their lives when they're sort of tapping into this wide open playing field. They're exposed to many children in their class, more kids in the neighborhood. They see other kids making friendships. They want to make a friendship. And they're not kind of, having the play date set up for them anymore. So this is a dynamic time of learning about making a friend. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Think back to the time in your life when you were making your first friends, when you were at this age group. You were probably in one of three different situations. The first situation is you probably had a number of friends. You had good social skills. You had buddies that you would hang out with. This might have gone on for years. That's one situation. Very comfortable. Second situation, you might have had a best friend. You might have made a friend that, you guys were just always close, inseparable. Always hanging out. You had other friends maybe, but really the two of you were kind of besties and you were the ones that were always together. Or you might be in this third situation, and that is it was more difficult for you to make friends. And as a matter of fact, you might not have had many friends. You were more alone. It wasn't comfortable. Whichever of these three situations you found yourself in, it probably had a pretty significant effect on you as you were growing up. When we learn how to form friendships, it forms a bit of a platform where we can learn what works and what doesn't work in making friends. We find out what attracts people to us. We find out what we can do that kind of turns off people. We want to avoid those things, obviously. But it's very important that we have these experiences as we're growing up, and that's why I'm focusing these videos on what we can do as parents to try to answer that question that our child proposed, which is, "Mom, I don't have any friends." Which is why I think this two-video series is really quite important, because we're trying to answer that question, what can we do as parents to help our kids build friendships? And there are things that we can do. Now, these three situations are the most common ones that we find ourselves in, but you may have been in a different situation. If you were, tell us about it in the comments below. So let's go back to what our child said. Our child says, "I don't have any friends." Now, as parents, we see lots of friends out there. So we're thinking, lots of neighbors, lots of kids in the class. We might make some suggestions. What about Sean down the street? He seems like a nice kid. Our child will say something like, he's really not that nice. He's kind of mean to me. So what about Steven? He lives right down the street. Mom, he's already got a best friend. He really doesn't, want to hang out with me that much. So we get these kind of negative responses for our kids. We're really not getting any traction moving forward. We're trying to make reasonable suggestions and point out some choices for our child, but apparently our child has already done a little bit of evaluation on their own and has determined that they don't have a real chemistry with any of these choices that we are selecting. So it's kind of falling on deaf ears. Now, let's look a little bit more closely to the situation from our child's viewpoint. We see lots of kids in the class, some kids in the neighborhood, but does our child really have as many choices as we think they do? It's time for a famous Bornemann thought experiment. Actually, it's not going to be that famous, but I think it's going to be kind of good. Let's take a look at this from our child's viewpoint. Let's say each one of these is a child. Where does your child meet other kids? Well, the main place, obviously, is going to be when they're in first or second grade or kindergarten. The main place is going to be the school. Number one choice, more kids there than anywhere else. And it turns out that in the typical American classroom these days, how many kids are in a class? Well, about 20. That's the average class size, 20 kids. Now, Your kids also have an opportunity in the neighborhood. Hopefully you have a neighborhood that has a bunch of kids in it. So in the hood, maybe there are a number of other kids. Let's say there are six kids that are about the same age as your child, maybe a year older, a year younger, that sort of thing. So those are opportunities as well. So here we have 6 kids right here. Now you'll notice I have a little bit of a separation, and that's because when kids are young like this, obviously, you'll find that they tend to form friendships based on their gender. So boys tend to hang with boys, and girls tend to hang with girls. So we have our boy column here in the classroom in the neighborhood, and we have the girl column here. Now, sometimes you get best friends that are, or close friends that are different genders, but usually they hang out together. That's just what you see. So what does that mean? That means that if you have a girl, for example, who's looking to form a friendship, these boys here, they're kind of not available because they're going to be hanging around with other boys. So you have this group in the class, and that's 10 kids, 10 girls, and you have 3 girls that live in the neighborhood. So let's just drill down a little bit. Let's look at what we have here. So maybe one of these kids, one of these girls, maybe she's a mean girl. She's not that popular and she's not that nice to other kids. You have 2 other kids, and they're kind of like very, very shy, painfully shy, hard to engage with, hard to develop a friendship with those kids. We also have 2 kids that have been friends for a while. They're kind of besties. They've been hanging out since they knew each other in the neighborhood, and they just happen to be in the same class. They're nice, but they're really not open to admitting another playmate to the group, so to speak. You have this kind of exclusion thing. We also have 2 other kids, maybe, that are like socially awkward. You know, they're hard to start a relationship with. So what do we have in the neighborhood? Well, let's say we have the same thing we find in the class, which would be highly possible. We have 2 kids that have had a relationship for the last 2 years. They're very nice, but they're, not that open to adding someone to their group as well. So what does your child really have to choose from as far as numbers? You have the 3 kids in the class, and you have the 1 kid in the neighborhood. And of course, they all have to have a sort of a mutual chemistry in order to start a friendship. Now that might work. 4 kids might be enough. But the point is, our children may not have as many opportunities to form friendships as it would appear to us as parents when we see them going into a class full of kids and we see neighborhood kids running around the neighborhood and riding bikes. The good news is, as parents, there's something that we can do that's relatively easy to change these numbers and make them better for our kid. So clearly what we need to do is we need to change the numbers in the favor of our kids. Now, if you know a parent, a friend who might benefit from this video, please tap on the share icon so that they can view it as well. Let me know what they think. So how do we do this? We need to find social activities that our child will respond to. This might take a little bit of work, but it will definitely be worth the effort. It's important. Friendships are very, very important. So what might some of these be? Well, we could go to our child's grade school. They might know some activities either in the school or in the community that other kids have responded positively to. Cub Scouts is great for boys. Brownies can be great for girls. Thinking back, I was actually in Cub Scouts. I don't even remember why I got into it. I had friends. That wasn't the reason, but I actually made new friends in Cub Scouts who became good friends. It kind of worked out in the same way that I'm talking about in this video. But at any rate, moving forward. So other activities, sports activities, gymnastics, swimming. There are hobbies. Some libraries even have book clubs for very young kids. If you have a museum that's somewhere in your community, sometimes they will have activities. The whole idea is to just get your kid involved in other groups of kids. Kids that are not in that group of pebbles that we showed with the classroom in the neighborhood. Kids that are new. Get your child exposed to new relationships and new kids to give them new opportunities. Now, this subject about making friends is actually a pretty complicated, and as I said, it's a very important subject. So this is a 2-part video. This is part 1. The other one will come out in a week. You can access that here if it has come out at this point. Make sure that you subscribe and tap on the bell icon so that you will actually get a little chime and know that this video comes in if you want it. The second video is going to have information on children that have more of a challenge. This first video covers the easiest things, the fastest things that we can do as a parent, simply by improving the numbers game in the odds of our child. The second video works on things that improve our children's social skills. You know, not all children have the social skills required to make friends easily. Some need a little work. Good thing is that this is stuff that is learnable. We can help our children by coaching them and encouraging them with some of the social skills that they need. So I hope you found this video to be useful in your family, and as I frequently will say, I hope to see you on the next one.